started. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Gig Harbor City Council meeting of Monday, April 24th, 2023. The time is 5:31 p.m. And if I will do a roll call from my far left, Councilmember Wook. Here. Councilmember Storsett.
Here.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Likens. Here. Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Martin is excused and Councilmember Barber. Here. Okay, great. Thank you. Would you all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin this council meeting, we would like to recognize that we are gathered on not only the ancestral and traditional lands of the Squabosh Band of the Puyallup Tribe of Indians, but also on the site of one of the largest and longest standing historic villages of their people, the original inhabitants of the Gig Harbor area. Council, are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. My mayor's report this evening. As you may know or may not know, the legislature wrapped up their 2023 session last night. There were several notable bills that we were tracking over the last several months. Two of the most significant ones were the pursuit bill and the drug possession bill, otherwise known as the Blake fix. Regarding the pursuit legislation, the past version slightly modified the current restrictions on police pursuits. The evidentiary standard for authorized pursuits was lowered from probable cause to reasonable suspicion, but it is still very restricted and limited. There's a very limited list of crimes that police can still pursue. We likely won't see direct impacts. So some of the headlines you've seen in the news are crime's going to go down now, and there's going to be a lot of changes. There really won't be. That this bill did not change very much. We are hopeful that the legislation will be improved the next session, and we will not rest in between sessions. We will continue to work with our legislators and mayors across the state, police chiefs across the state, city administrators. I know our city administrator is also committed to what may even be a grassroots effort that starts here in Gig Harbor, if that's what it takes to see if we can affect some change during the next legislative session. Regarding the Blake fix, no new legislation was passed. And so the current law sunsets on June 30th, and there will be no regulation of drug possession beyond that date. So we're watching the legislature carefully. The governor, in his address last night after the end of session, is saying he is hopeful and almost demanding that our legislature still come up with something before July 1st. So we're watching to see if a special session will be called. We don't know that yet, but we'll keep you posted. In the meantime, we are going to look at local regulation of drug use and possession if no state law exists after June 30th. So we'll have some conversations with council and with our city attorney, with our police chief, and multiple departments to make sure that if we do need to craft an ordinance, that it is actually going to be effective, that it's actually going to be able to be, what's the word I'm looking for? That it's going to be an effective ordinance that we can actually act on. So, as I said, we won't rest on either of these issues until next session and even beyond. So we had an emergency, I say we, the city through our police department, we participated in the emergency preparedness fair at Gig Harbor High School on Saturday. I hear that there was a good turnout. I was busy at Parks Appreciation Day and Sip and Stroll and some other things, so I didn't make it over there, but It featured displays and presentations to help educate the community about what to do in the event of an emergency and natural disaster. And we thank the Peninsula Emergency Preparedness Coalition, or PEPC, for sponsoring this event. It was a really important event. And then Parks Appreciation Day was last Saturday as well, from 9 to noon. Wilkinson Farm Park, Soundview Forest Park, and Grandview Forest Park, along with Tubby's Trail, which is a PennMet park, all got much needed love and attention, and they look really, really good. Special thank you to our Parks Commissioners, Ben Coronado, Stace Gordon, Doug Smith, and Louise Tiemann. They were all out there rotating parks, regulating parking. So many more volunteers showed up than we even expected. It was phenomenal. It was so much fun. Parks Manager Jennifer Harrow and Field Supervisor Kyle Neiman really led this event. Oh yeah, you'll see Josh has some pictures up. That was Wilkinson Farm Park. That is becoming one of my favorite parks. It is so fun to walk in, and the sawdust that they were spreading, it had the right amount of dampness. It literally felt like a carpet under your feet on these trails. And it was really, really cool. I also want to thank our Gig Harbor VFW Post 1854, Peninsula Lutheran Church, Midday Rotary, and the Interact Club from Gig Harbor High School. And then we also had several volunteers from other cities who came out. I think the furthest volunteer was from Hoquiam. So we had so many people that came out from UP, Port Orchard. So it was really, really neat. It was so fun to meet all of them. There's the sawdust pile. That was when it was almost gone. It was like 4 feet higher than that when they started. And that was at Grandview. It was just great. The last thing is I will be changing the format a little bit for my podcast. It's been kind of like a 20-minute segment with a community guest interview and then a local business spotlight. But I've had some feedback that people really want to know what's happening in the city from my perspective and from, just my thoughts as the mayor. And so I'm going to have like 5-10 minutes of me just talking to the public about hot topics, things that the city is going through. And then still have a community guest for 10 minutes and then still do our local business spotlight. So it should be really fun. We have a special one that's going to come up at the end of May. That's a surprise. So I'll tell you about that later, but it might involve being out on the water. So it's very exciting. If anyone has any suggestions of issues that they want me to talk about or people that they'd like to have featured, let me know. And that concludes my report, and I'll turn it over to Katrina Knutson, City Administrator, for her report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'll start off with the biggest one. We received $1.68 million from the state legislature for our Willotchit projects through this legislative session. And so it's a big celebratory time for us, noting how long we've been attempting to receive money for these projects that will improve the traffic flow over the Willotchit overpass for our residents and improve safety. And so just wanted to thank the mayor and the council for putting this on and retaining it on our legislative agenda, as well as Senator Emily Randall and Representatives Hutchins and Caldeer for supporting Gig Harbor in receiving this funding. A full press release for anyone of the press that's listening will be going out tomorrow. And so that will have all of the information. And so we're very excited to celebrate that wonderful accomplishment. Second, I know that council had been discussing in work sessions lately, downtown businesses and downtown parking. The Downtown Waterfront Alliance is putting together a subcommittee that is going to be looking at parking and businesses downtown. And those dates for the initial meeting are in mid-May. So I'll provide those to council. And if you'd like to participate, that would be great. If you're unable to participate, we're going to be putting together a time in a work session where Carrie Ann Eckberg and Miriam Batson can come and speak with the council about what they're seeing going on downtown and ideas that they have for potential improvements down there. So that will be ongoing. We have a community visioning fair coming up for the comprehensive plan update. And Josh, you could put the flyer up. That will be, let's see here, community visioning fair. So essentially the comp plan looks at the next 20 years of how our community is going to grow. And this is very important to hear from all residents and stakeholders within the community on everything from housing, land use, transportation, and the environment. It really shape how we're going to be over the next 20 years in our community. That will be on May 20th from 10 to 2. So if everyone can mark your calendars to be here that day, it'll be a great time to come and learn about all of this and all the future involvement opportunities. And lastly, if you haven't seen the beautiful visitors guide, we received those last week. There's some out front here if you'd like to take a look at that. It's our wonderful partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. It's a great read. It's very beautiful. There's some highlights in here of highlighting the Scansey Nutshed, the Harbor History Museum, also highlighting our wonderful trail of distilleries and wineries that you can take along the waterfront and enjoy the harbor that way. So encourage you to pick this up and share that with your friends and neighbors. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I will now open up public comment on non-agenda items. If there's anyone in our audience here, thank you for joining us. And also our online audience, thank you for joining us as well. You can come on forward. And if you would state your full name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Oh, just one moment. We just need to turn the microphone on. Thank you.
Minor problem. I'm Jerry Gamble, 4253 Pelton Court in Gig Harbor. And I want to thank the mayor, city council members, and city staff of helping me through the years that I've lived in Gig Harbor in progressing toward my goal of making Gig Harbor Scotch broom free like Bainbridge Island. We made it where the future village at Harbor Hill is free of Scotch broom and blackberry bushes. You go by the future village, it's all cleared off, waiting for something to be developed. You go down Peacock Hill a little bit further on the right, you see a place that was cleared off, just solid Scotch broom. If we hadn't done that together, that's the way that would look down the future village. So I thank you for that. We have worked together to eliminate Scotch broom from Borgen Avenue. If you go down Borgen from Peacock Hill, going down towards Costco, you won't see any Scotch broom on either side of Borgen. That's us working together. Resident volunteers and Harbor Hill Residents Association have made a terrific dent in many areas of Harbor Hill. And I have a map that I'll send to everybody, an email, so you can see the progress we've made. We are now getting language in the 2023 Gig Harbor Stormwater Management and Site Development Manual to control Scotch broom and blackberry bushes. I now ask all of you to think of ways to keep working toward the eliminating goal. An example would be to put in the work assignments for summer help to remove Scotch broom from other areas in Gig Harbor, such as the city pond by the traffic circle and Burnham by the Sportsman Club. If you go by there, just look at that place, you'll see Scotch broom all around the edge. It'd be nice to have the volunteers take care of that this summer. I ask everyone to think about other areas to push the envelope. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in our online audience wish to speak this evening, you can push *9 on your phone or raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment on non-agenda items, and we will move into our first old business item, which is the second reading and adoption of ordinance 1511, adopting the 2023 Gig Harbor Stormwater Management and Site Development Manual. Suggested motion is to move to approve ordinance 1511, and this report comes to us from our Public Works Director, Jeff Linghill. Hey, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Since the first reading of this ordinance at the April 10th meeting to have been made between the 2016 manual and the 2023 manual, based on comments we heard from Council at that meeting. We also looked at developments that we have in the pipeline for review and which ones of those might be under review but impacted by these changes. So the agenda bill that you were provided today provides an overview of some of the changes between the 2016 manual and the 2023 manual. And then Dean Zamek, our senior engineer, is here to help explain a little bit more about the manual and also some of the impacts that might be seen by some of the development in the development community.
Thank you, Jeff. So adoption of this ordinance will, after almost 9 months, will put us in compliance with the Department of Ecology and our permit. We were required under our permit to actually adopt a manual by July 1st of last year. There was a few reasons for that, but we won't go into those. But since the last time we did notice, we were wondering what projects would be impacted and how they would be impacted. And since our stormwater update is based on our permit, which is from state and federal laws, we had to look and see if we could actually, what projects could be vested and what could not be vested. Since the requirements to adopt this manual are state based, it's a kind of a complicated matter, but you really can't vest state laws. So then we had our discussion with Daniel, and we decided what would actually make your project have to follow the new manual or allowed to be follow the old manual. And it's basically, we've determined it's basically 4 things. So if a project is already went through a hearing examiner and had a decision on it, and there was storm in it, in that decision, it mentioned our 2016 stormwater manual. That project could continue to follow the 2016 manual. If a project has approved civil plans, they're allowed to still keep their civil plans that are approved and not have to make the changes to the 2023 manual. If the project has like a written agreement with the city, like a developer project, that would basically allow them to use the manual that that agreement was based on. So there's a few projects like that in the city. Another way to be able to use the old manual, if you have an approved land use permit, you would be allowed to continue to use the old stormwater manual and progress with your project forward to construction. So any project that doesn't fall in those 4 categories would be required to update to the new manual. So there is a few projects that are waiting to go to hearing examiner, which this does have an impact. We had a discussion and we agreed that they could just, if they have an approved report or approved plans, they could basically write a statement, like submit an addendum with like what's it called? Sorry, it's a sort of, yeah, like with a certification sheet that was signed by their engineer that this project does meet the new manual standards. Or they could submit an addendum just to bring their project and report and plans up to the new stormwater manual. So I know I have a few projects I've looked at. I don't see this as a big impact on them, except they have to do a read submittal. We talked about it and we feel that the city should not charge applicants to resubmit just for a stormwater upgrade in the middle of their project. So if there's other updates, they would have to possibly pay for a resubmittal, but so some of the changes from the old manual is there's some of the new state guidelines have to do with wetlands and some wetland, like they're trying to determine if wetland classification, what your project has to do. Another big update is the state has this new underground injection well permit system they're really trying to enforce. So an underground injection well would be something that where you take a pipe and you stick it underground to disperse water. So like places like where they're collecting water with perf pipe, that does not count as an underground injection well. So that's a state permit that's not going to be monitored or by the city, but it does let applicants know that they have to follow all the state regulations. There's some other, there's a lot of minor stormwater modeling changes. They have to upgrade to the new ecology manual model. They can't really use other equivalent models anymore. And Also, one of the things that we're doing in our new upgrade manual is we're updating our stormwater public works standards details for stormwater.
Okay, so that's a brief overview of the changes. And we did send letters out to applicants who have projects in the pipeline and let them know of these changes so that they should be aware not only through all the rest of our processes, but also through a direct mailing. So
Great.
that's the report we have for tonight. Happy to answer any questions you might have now.
Okay, thank you. Any clarifying questions from council? Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Dean. That was a good overview. Getting back to one of the comments that public made about Scotch broom, is there something new in our stormwater manual? I was just doing a search while you were giving your presentation about Scotch broom or invasive species. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we actually identify Scott before where it said invasive species per Pierce County. Now it says we target, it says Scotch broom and Himalayan blackberry. And we also added, there is a city ordinance for nuisance vegetation upkeep. And so I added the code, the Gig Harbor Municipal Code there too, in case that whoever was using this manual could look that up themselves, and hopefully that provides some extra incentive for them to remove invasive species.
But that would only be for stormwater systems, not say along.
Correct.
the
It'd be
bike
a
trail or something
stormwater
like that.
facility. So it's
Okay.
basically, it'd be in a storm track without a pond in it or another track that was.
Great. Any other clarifying questions from council? Okay, I don't see any other lights, so I will open up public comment on this agenda item only. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak, or on our online audience. Okay. Seeing no hands raised, I will close public comment on this agenda item and open it up for council deliberation and action. Councilmember Runberg.
Yes, I'm in favor of passing this. I especially like, besides all the hard work you did, I especially like that you made it so easy for people and fair for people that already had projects in the works. And because quite often the city is accused of being too stringent, too tough, hard to deal with, and all those kinds of things. So I think what the policy that you put in place, very fair, and it'll go a long way in changing those attitudes. So thank you for that. I support this 100%.
Would you like to make a motion? Was that a motion?
And that's a motion to, that's a motion to approve ordinance 1511.
Second. Okay, seconded by Councilmember Likens. I don't see any other lights. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. All right, and so we'll move on to new business item number 1, which is resolution 1274, recognizing and accepting the City of Gig Harbor Urban Growth Area Assessment and Guidelines Report. Suggested motion is move to approve resolution 1274. Thank you, Dean and Jeff, very much. I forgot to say that at the end. This report comes from our Community Development Director, Carl DeSimas. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Before you this evening is the final draft of the Urban Growth Area Assessment and Guidelines, which I believe most of you are familiar with. We've been working on this document with Burke Consulting going on about 1.5 years, maybe just over 1.5 years to get it right. This document was reviewed extensively by the Planning Commission, and I believe it has been before the City Council at 3 different study sessions. The guidance in the document is based on surveys of our existing urban growth area and analysis of the various impacts that annexation could have on the city. The guidance is essentially provided through two approaches. One is that it provides clear and consistent guidelines for evaluating future annexation proposals or actions. And two is categorizing the city's urban growth areas into strategic areas with general priority classifications for future planning purposes. The report will be a valuable tool, not only for future annexation consideration, but it will also help us inform our comprehensive plan update that we're currently in full gear on. It will also help us in future discussions with Pierce County in dealing with our urban growth areas or what they consider potential annexation areas. Tonight, we're seeking council's concurrence and adoption of Resolution 1274, accepting this report as dated March 2023. And that concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Any clarifying questions from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any lights, so I will open up public comment on this agenda item. If you're in the audience and you'd like to speak, you can come forward. And if online, you can push *9 on your phone or the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment on this agenda item and open it up for council deliberation. Councilmember Wook.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great document. Thanks for all your hard work. And the guidelines make it, again, easy and understandable. And I look forward to seeing those in the comprehensive plan as we move forward. And therefore, I move to approve Resolution 1274.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I don't see any other lights. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. Thank you, Carl. All right, we are just moving right along. We will go to item number 2 of new business, first reading and adoption of ordinance 1512, amending the city's personnel salary schedule. Suggested motion is to move to approve ordinance 1512. And this report comes to us from our Human Resources Director, Shannon Costanti. Welcome, Shannon.
Mayor, if I could remind the mayor and council to turn your microphones off so that the online camera will shine on staff during their presentation.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, it should switch over if all the mics are off.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. It's a privilege to be here this evening and presenting on Ordinance 1512. As you'll recall, there were new and reclassified positions approved by Council for the biennial budget included on the salary schedule for 2023. Following that approval, city staff worked to finalize job descriptions, comps, and bargaining with the associated unions, which has all been completed at this point. So presented in your materials this evening is a proposed amended salary schedule representing each of these positions. To note, additionally, in your packet and with the amended salary schedule proposed this evening, we're proposing 2 reclassifications. First is the wastewater superintendent, which is a modest update to the job description and related comps as a result of the crossover of duties that was determined in the evaluation of the reclassified wastewater operator series, specifically the lead operator position. Second is a reclassification of the HR and payroll assistant position in recognition of additional duties and a focused element of the job on FMLA and PFML leave administration. Lastly, there's an update to the salary schedule, removing the 5-year limitation for the maintenance technicians, which previously restricted employees from moving or exceeding midpoint of their pay range unless they had been with the city for at least 5 years. We found that this really conflicted with our commitment to retain quality staff, and we were unable to move staff beyond that step 5 of their pay range because they hadn't been with the city for 5 years. So we have lost some staff as a result of that limitation. So we additionally bargained that adjustment with the union, and we've presented that to you as part of your packet this evening with the salary schedule amendment. So that concludes my report. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Shannon. Any clarifying questions from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any lights, so I will open up public comment on this agenda item only. Again, if you're in the audience, you can come forward at this time. Or if you're on the watching online, you can push *9 on your phone or the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and I will open up council deliberation and action.
I move to approve ordinance 1512, amending the city's personnel salary schedule.
Okay. Yes, there's a motion and a second, but we can still have discussion. So Councilmember Rodenberg.
Besides the fairness that's included in this, what I especially like is what I think the citizenry would be concerned with, and that is that there is no fiscal consideration for this, that there's no budget allocation amendment needed. And I think that speaks to HR looking forward and finance looking forward. And we put this in the budget when we knew it was coming up. So it's not a surprise. We could go into the union negotiations with confidence that we had the money and it wouldn't be something you'd have to push over on council. So thank you very much. I support it.
Thank you. Councilmember Barber.
Yes, thank you. I just want to express my appreciation to staff for the work that you've done to put together these, what seem to me to be very fair and equitable and forward-thinking salary adjustments for people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other lights, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, council. And thank you so much, Shannon, for all your hard work. Really appreciate you and your team very much. We will move to our staff report. Dave Rodenbach, our finance director, here to provide our quarterly budget report. Welcome, Dave.
Good evening, Mayor Markley and members of the council. The first quarter is in and it looks pretty good overall. And despite what you've been hearing in the press about economics and potential recessions and things going down, in general, for the general fund, our major revenues are right on track to where we need to be. We're about 2% behind if you wanted to split hairs in total taxes, and that's the big thing that we look at in the general fund. However, of concern are development revenues. These would be our building permits, plumbing permits, those such things. Those have kind of dried up. It's about 130,000 through March this year, and I'm not looking at my thing, but correct me if I'm way off, but it was about 500 last year at the same time. And if we're looking, the percentage drop that I've calculated is 67% year over year, same time last year. That in and of itself isn't super concerning because these don't come in linearly throughout the budget period. However, when you couch that with the real estate excise taxes, which are down 35%, transportation impact fees are down 94%. We had 561,000 in transportation impact fees this same time last year, 35,000 this year. Park impact fees, 120,000 same time last year, 10,500 this year. And so if this tracks out, and this is really I probably shouldn't have even gone here because it's so early in the period, you know, we have 7 more quarters to go, but If this were to track out, we'd be looking at about a $2.2 million hole. Now, that being said, what we're doing is just monitoring, but we're beginning the year almost $1 million ahead of where we thought we were, because the actual beginning fund balance is close to $1 million, like 830 more than we had budgeted. Expenditures are tracking pretty normal, and we have great reserves here. So it's pretty much a thing that we just want to sit and monitor this. And so what we're doing in finance is rather than waiting for the quarterly things, we're going to look at this thing at the end of each month. And starting in April, we're going to start putting together a forecast to where we think we're going to end up at the end of the biennium based on what we have right now, just so we don't get ourselves in trouble. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer.
Dave, if I may, council, as Dave mentioned, this is 3 months of data, and so we cannot necessarily take a trend based off of 3 months. However, as Dave said, it is a little bit more concerning when we have the REIT that is lower, likely due to the higher interest rates trying to drive down inflation, but also with the impact fees that we're seeing the reductions in. And so as Dave said, he and his team will be tracking this monthly, but while we're doing that, we're looking at, Carl and his team are putting together a development pipeline of all of the projects that we have approved. And we're looking to see how many projects there are, where they are in their span of time, so that we can provide that information to council by the time we have second quarter data. And by then we should know if there'll need to be any adjustments to any of our proposed expenditures. So we'll be gathering a lot of information during this next quarter and updating council soon.
Great, thank you. And yeah, thank you, Dave, to you and your team. I know our new senior accountant is doing phenomenally and just really digging in, and appreciate the monthly updates. That's really, really important, especially with, like you said, what we're hearing on the news and kind of some unrest people might feel that maybe they don't need to feel quite yet. So thank you for providing that assurance.
You're
each
welcome.
month. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see. I think I had the light order correct. Councilmember Wook?
Yes, thank you. So am I correct in thinking that when you do your monthly reports and watching, that council will also get a copy of those monthly reports?
Yes, you will. At the very minimum, it would be in the weekly update at the minimum. And if it rises to the level of needing to be a presentation at the council, we'll surely do that. And if it really is serious, we could probably do a study session on it. I mean, I guess we have those 3 options, and
Okay, that sounds
we'll
great.
certainly keep you up to date.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, for all your hard work. And I guess this is also the time to talk about the first quarter budget report as well. That's
Yes, it is.
attached to that. I just want to say thank you for that budget report. It is complete. And to all the directors who had to submit that information from you and your staff. It is really nice to be able to track all of our projects, to find out if they're going to be done, if they're going to be on track for 24, if it's going to be for the 2023-24 budget, if they're going to be on track, if it's going to be happening within budget, and the reasons why, if they're not going to be happening. So it makes it really easy to understand for our council and for our citizens. So thank you, and I look forward to getting those weekly updates on the budget. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you, Mayor. I sort of guess we knew, though, that development fees were going to drop down anyway over the next couple of years. Just there's not a lot of development coming in Gig Harbor like the big ones that we used to have in 2016, 17, and 18, as well as the impact fees. So you find it surprising that this is down? I mean, REIT fees, I understand, because that's just from the sale of houses, and clearly we haven't had a lot of houses sold recently due to the interest rates, but
I do, because we budgeted for a significant amount more. And so since we budgeted that, we planned it, we expected it. And while we didn't go through a rigorous, these projects are in the pipeline and they're reasonably going to happen over this time frame, we eyeballed what we got last year, and we had no reason to believe that they would fall off in this year, even though we toned it down a bit. And so the timing, I guess, is a little surprising. We knew the other shoe was going to fall economically somehow, somewhere, into the area we're headed, but we didn't know this much this fast.
Thanks.
And I would add to that, that the budget that we did, it was a kind of a no growth assumption for the 2023. And then in 2024, we actually projected a minor decrease in uptake. What I think we're experiencing right now is a very sharp reduction in development activity within the city. And so I think the amount of it is surprising. We were anticipating a reduction in permit revenue just because a lot of the larger plots are constructed and built out. But to the level that we're experiencing right now, it's something that at least right now, we're definitely needing to keep our eye on.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your team, all of our directors working so hard to get this information to you so that you could present it to us. So thank you to those that are here and those that might be listening for getting that put together. Really appreciate it. All right, I don't have any other questions, so I'll move on to council reports and comments. Councilmember Likens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to give a report on the Pierce County Regional Council meeting that I attended on last Thursday evening, April 20th. It was a packed agenda, a long meeting, and lots of presentations were made. The first presentation was made by Pierce County Executive Damemeyer, and he gave a summary or shorter version of his state of the county. He focused on 4 different areas. Number 1 was public safety. He talked about the Blake rules, the fentanyl opiate crisis, and theft, increasing both in retail locations and auto. And these are going to be familiar to all of us. Focusing on helping supporting businesses. They're looking at solutions, including possible grants to increase security for businesses such as camera, increased street and or parking lighting along the businesses throughout the county. He said he did talk about that it is challenging to hire corrections officers to keep the jails open, and they're analyzing best practices and revamping their whole recruitment and retention policy. Number 2, he talked about homelessness. He stated the countywide goal that to make interaction with those with housing insecurity brief and one-time only. That is their goal. He said there's about 800 to 1,000 chronically homeless individuals in the county, many with addictions and or mental health issues. He's working with their Housing and Human Services Department to get people into shelters, which he said we have enough of, but it's the permanent supportive housing that they need more long-term that we need more. He talked about his Pierce County Village project that's modeled after Austin, Texas. And he took several staff recently to Austin to meet with the program that offers not only micro-housing, but healthcare and business enterprise opportunities, and has been quite successful. And they learn from them what's working, what's not, as they consider planning the program here in the county. It also included on-site, like mental health resources and drug and alcohol counseling. So it sounded like a great program. He talked about affordable housing and the 0.1% sales tax. He also talked about a couple kind of finished with positive programs that are making an impact. He talked about School Connect. It's a pilot program in Pierce County School that provides direct or online mental health resources, treatment, and therapy. And they're piloting it in several school districts, including Peninsula School District. And this year they've already provided service to over 450 youths. So it's been very successful, and they're hoping to take it countywide. They talked about the success of their community navigator mental health and addiction co-responders going out with their officers, and talked about a business accelerator program that they're creating to encourage business enterprises, particularly in the BIPOC community. And it includes now free online videos on business education that was created by TCC for entrepreneurs. So we might want to put a link to that to our Gigabyte or something going out to let people know that that's available. We also, he also mentioned the public safety funding and re-recruitment. They had several officers, I believe it was close to a dozen, resign from Pierce County Sheriff, and they were able to get back 8 of them by working with them. So that was very successful. Another presentation, just real briefly, was Pierce County Sheriff Ed Troyer. He talked about increase in theft, particularly cars, that he mentioned that corrections recruitment also is difficult. He said that they have many open health positions for mental health and addiction co-responders. Raymond Hall and the jails are currently open. They have had issues related to staffing, COVID, but he said what's really backing it up is people awaiting mental health hearings that are spending way too long in jails. And they're trying to work with the state to try to get more court hearings. It's the courts that are, and the lack of resources that seem to be holding it up. He talked about following the Washington state legislation that Mayor Markley presented earlier and the success of what they call their top 100 criminals list. It's kind of a most wanted list for Pierce County, and it's an emphasis that's going out. Another presentation, I just have 2 more things, I promise, bear with me. It was a lot to learn in that meeting. Yeah, and it's good information. The CEO, Angela Naylor of Wellfound Behavioral Health Hospital, the brand new behavioral health hospital in the Tacoma area. It was created in partnership with both Multicare and Virginia Mason Franciscan. They serve everyone over 18 years old who needs mental health services. Mary Bridge is still the referral for peds, and it's far too small, I can say from personal experience. They have 84 beds open. They hope to have 12 more related to staffing. And the reason they made this presentation to us is that they said it's being underutilized, which is surprising. They have been surprised. It's being underutilized. And they wanted to remind people that we can direct admit by bypassing the ER through our EMS and fire. So I'm going to pass this information along to Chief Doan. I'm sure he's probably aware, but just to double check. And then you can also do provider referrals, like from the ERs and hospitals, or people can even walk in and self-admit at any time. They're open 24 hours. They have an assessment and crisis area that's available. They use what they call a trauma-informed care approach, which working in healthcare, that's a very advanced model that appreciates the trauma that people are going through just by being present in these situations. Pierce County gave the numbers, had before this hospital opened only 2.8 per 100,000 people population beds in mental health. The national average and standard is over 20 per 100,000. This new hospital brings it up to 16. So there's still a need. So, but lovely presentation that they gave, just telling people that this is available. And then lastly was the hot topic of housing targets. An income allocation was presented by Erica Rhett Hunt from Pierce County, and talking about with the growth management, the House Bill 1220 growth targets are now having to be reported by not only total population increases and percentages, but also by income band. So they're looking to see housing across all wages. And they presented some information about the Department of Commerce work group that I believe one of our planners, Robin Bolster, is a part of. And that we had these huge increased growth numbers when Department of Commerce came forward using something called the HAPT tool, H-A-P-T. But Pierce County and the Growth Management Board had conversations with the Department of Commerce. And the numbers, when you use the percentage of population, in particular for Gig Harbor, went down significantly from the Department of Commerce numbers that were originally presented. It was only an increase, I want to say, of about 500, as opposed to, I know I saw earlier numbers that were almost 5,000 more. So this was a much, more based on the numbers that the Growth Management Committee came up with last year. This was much closer. But what becomes interesting is that this is now, they're going to look at existing housing stock by income bands. And so you're going to see if you have too much housing in a certain income if you need more and other incomes, and they're gonna look at your median income per each city or county. So there's gonna be some discussions coming up. Those income band numbers and allocations are gonna be out around the first week of May to be voted on by the Puget Sound Regional Council. So it'll be some interesting topics related to growth here in the harbor. So thanks. That was long. Sorry, it was a long meeting too.
Thank you for the very informative update. Appreciate that. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, thank you. I think we owe congratulations to Peninsula School District's Pioneer Elementary School. Pioneer Elementary is one of just 26 schools in the country named by the U.S. Department of Education as a green ribbon school. This honor recognizes schools that reduce environmental impacts and costs, improve health and wellness, and other effective sustainability education. So that's a great thing for one of our elementary schools, and hopefully Peninsula School District will have a little competition to make sure every school is brought up that way. This afternoon, I had a lot of fun reading to the second grade over at Discovery School with Mrs. Wilson in the library. And it was great fun to be with those children. I think I got that link from either a city administrator or from Mayor Markley. And so it was lots of fun. So thanks for that link. It's always nice to be with second graders who are enthusiastic, and we just had a great time. So I invite everybody who hasn't signed up to read. It's fun. Go do it. And the last thing is Jenny Listens will be tomorrow morning at Kimball Coffee at 9 a.m. So thank you.
Great, thank you. You're right. It is great fun to go read to those kids. They are so hilarious and they have the best questions. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Thank you. This afternoon, I attended the Penn Met Steering Committee that is formed to find a permanent home for seniors. On that committee are regional leaders, stakeholders, seniors, Penn Met executives, and a architectural firm. This is the second meeting they've had. They did a survey between meetings to see what the stakeholders or the committee thought were the most important things, the most important programs to have on a senior center, what facilities they thought a senior city center should have, how large it should be. The architectural firm presented 3 scenarios, small, medium, and large. It all has a matter to do with dollars, of course. They were still choosing those things, and they ought to publish their survey as well as the outcome of that meeting. Incidentally, there are actually 3 actions going on in town or in the region to find a place for seniors. One is the current senior center by the Greater Gig Harbor Foundation that provides some services. There's the Penn Met that's looking at a long-term solution and a permanent building, real bricks and mortar for the senior center. And there's a group in the middle that's got some very good ideas about providing a rental space, maybe 1, 2, 3 years. As you know, Penn Met, even when they come up with their idea, it's going to take them years to plan it, years to permit it, years to fund it. So the 2 gentlemen that are putting together what I might maybe stopgap isn't the correct word, but it's a 3 to 5 year plan to provide these services right here in Gig Harbor. So there's a lot being done to provide services for seniors. And if you ask them, it's just not quick or soon enough, but stay tuned.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Storsett.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I don't have a long report here, but just more of another reminder is that the Paddlers Cup is this weekend. I understand the staff has a team. Imagine you guys have been training. I will be in another boat. We've been on a 6-week program. I'll be rooting for you as well. It should be a really good time. To me, this kind of marks the beginning of spring. It's supposed to be really nice coming later this week and this weekend. So excited to get out and, have a good time in our harbor. So see you out there.
We'll see. We'll see how that, how that works out. Our staff are pretty pumped up and, oh, perfect, perfect. They're ready. They're ready. Thank you so much. Councilmember Rodenberg, did you have something else? Okay. All right. I don't see any other lights on. Announcement of upcoming meetings is attached to the end of this agenda, so you can check that out to see what is coming up. Thank you to all our city staff for being here tonight. Really appreciate you all being here, as well as our city attorney. Thank you so much. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.